Right now, somewhere near you, in a park, a backyard, a crack in the sidewalk, there is a home where every single child was kidnapped. They were stolen as eggs, raised by their kidnappers, taught to love the very colony that murdered their real family. And they have no idea. This isn't a horror movie. This is happening inside ant colonies, all over the world, every single day. And once you learn how it works, you will never look at ants the same way again. Chapter 1. The Species That Cannot Survive. Alone. In forests across North America and Europe, there's a species called the Amazon ant, named after the legendary warrior women, because that's exactly what these ants are built to be. Here's the strange part. Amazon ants cannot feed themselves. Their jaws have evolved into curved, sword-like weapons, perfect for fighting, completely useless for caring for larvae or gathering food. If left alone, an Amazon ant colony would starve to death within days. So, how does an entire species survive when it physically cannot do the basic work of living? It doesn't build a workforce. It steals one. When the colony needs more workers, scout ants search for a target, usually smaller, gentler ants that haven't evolved for combat. Once a scout finds one, an army mobilizes. Hundreds of soldiers march out, storm the enemy colony, and push straight past the guards toward one place, the nursery. The defenders are usually killed or scattered within minutes. Then the raiders do something almost eerie in how calm it is. They pick up the enemy's eggs and larvae gently in their jaws, the same jaws that just tore through the colony's defenders, and carry them back home. Alive. Chapter 2. Growing Up as a Slave. Those stolen eggs hatch inside the Amazon ant colony, and because ants recognize family through smell and environment, not memory, the babies have no way of knowing anything is wrong. Their instincts simply take over. They clean the nest. They feed the larvae, including the next generation of soldiers who will grow up to raid colonies just like theirs was raided. They forage. They defend the entrance. They do every job that keeps this colony functioning, a colony that could not exist without them. They work permanently, generation after generation, for the species that destroyed their first home. And they never sense that anything is unusual. To them, this is simply what home looks like. It's easy to say, it's just insects, it's just instinct. But scientists use the word slavery deliberately, because the pattern lines up: forced capture, generational labor, a captor population entirely dependent on captives to survive, and workers who have no memory of ever being free. Some Amazon ant colonies have been studied where over 90% of the workforce isn't the Amazon species at all. Meaning, most of the ants keeping the colony alive are the children of ants who were killed defending their home. Chapter 3. When It Gets Even. Darker, Amazon ants aren't even the most extreme example. There's another group, slave-maker ants, that goes further, with psychological warfare instead of brute force. In some of these species, a single queen sneaks into a rival colony alone. She releases a chemical scent that pacifies the guards, kills the resident queen, and then absorbs part of her scent onto her own body. To worker ants, scent isn't just identification, it's identity. So when the invading queen wears the murdered queen's scent, the colony doesn't fight her. It obeys her. Every worker in that nest will spend the rest of their lives feeding, grooming, and defending the very individual who killed their true queen, not because they were forced to, but because biologically, they're incapable of telling the difference. Chapter 4. Darwin's Discomfort and Why This Keeps Happening. When naturalists in the 1800s first documented this behavior, they reached for the most brutal word humans had: slavery. There was no gentler comparison that fit. Charles Darwin himself wrote about slave-making ants in On the Origin of Species, admitting the behavior initially struck him as almost too cruel, too calculated, to make sense with his own theory. If evolution simply rewards survival, how does it also produce something this specifically exploitative? But that's the lesson evolution keeps teaching us. Nature doesn't select for kindness or fairness. It selects for whatever works, and enslaving another colony's children works extraordinarily well. Here's a number that might surprise you. This behavior, called doulosis, has independently evolved in ants at least a dozen separate times, in completely unrelated lineages, on different continents. That word independently matters. It means whenever the right conditions exist, evolution arrives at slavery as a solution, again and again, with no connection between the species that do it. This isn't a bug in nature. It might be closer to a recurring predictable feature. Chapter 5. The Uprising. No one expected. Here's a twist even researchers didn't expect. In certain colonies, when enough enslaved workers share the same stolen origin, they've been observed turning on the larvae of their captors, destroying the next generation of the species that enslaved them. Nobody is entirely certain whether this is coordinated rebellion, a defensive instinct misfiring, or simply chemical confusion in an overcrowded nest. But scientists have started calling it, almost poetically, the closest thing nature has ever shown us to an uprising, happening silently, underground, inside a colony most of us would walk past without a second glance. Chapter 6. What this means, beyond the ants, and closing step back from the ants for a moment, and look at the bigger pattern. For most of human history, we told ourselves that exploitation and forced labor were uniquely human failures, moral failures, born of greed or ideology. But ants have no ideology, no greed, no culture, no moral philosophy, and yet evolution built the exact same system anyway, independently, over and over, purely because it was efficient. That's the uncomfortable truth hiding inside this story. It isn't really about insects. It's a reminder that some of the darkest patterns we associate with human behavior may be far older, far deeper, written into the basic logic of survival itself, long before anything resembling a human ever existed. The next time you see ants marching across the ground in a perfect, orderly line, understand that you might be looking at a colony where most of the workers were born somewhere else entirely, raised by the species that destroyed their first home, working every single day for a queen they were never meant to serve. They don't know they were taken. They never will. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of this whole story, because if an entire colony can be built on captivity that invisible, it makes you wonder what other systems, in nature or anywhere else, might be running exactly the same way, hidden in plain sight, right under our feet.